Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Blake Bettner, and I'm in studio in Brooklyn today with producer Josh. Hey, Josh, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good. It's good to see you. It's been a little while
I know.
since we've seen you. We're coming into some warm weather. I feel like moods are brightening. It's a good spot over here. I've got Zach Weiss in studio with me. Hey, Zach, how are you?
I'm very good.
Thanks for being here. And we've got Zach Kazan on the computer there. Hey, Zach.
Oh, hey guys, how's it going?
Good. I'm really excited about today's guest. We have, of course, he's been on our radar for, I guess, ever since we've been in this hobby. It's been a while.
A long time.
He is Mr. George Bamford. George Bamford, welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. Thank you for being here.
Honestly, it is a true honor to be here. I listen to your podcast. I love you guys, and this is cool. This is a first. I'm looking at your studio, going, oh my god. I've got a bit of jealousy going on there. I'm in London. I'm at the Hive, that is our townhouse behind the Dorchester, and it's in Mayfair. And this is our townhouse with my watchmakers on the top floor, and I'm sitting at my desk in my office.
Awesome.
It's nice to be here.
Well, it sounds quite lovely as well.
And a shout out to Josh. This is the Brooklyn podcast studio. This is not the Worn Around. So we're in Josh's house here, and it's
we come here. He's great. We've got a nice setup here. Yeah, and it's totally our pleasure to have you on today. We will get into to who you are for anybody that's unfamiliar. Before we start, Josh, what are you wearing on your wrist over there?
Well, now that it's warmer weather, it is definitely Q time.
It's Q time. The root beer Q.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm like, with the new releases that are out, I'm like, I might just add one of those new ones.
Oh my gosh, it's a problem. It never ends.
Yeah, I know.
There's too many cool watches that are always being released. Zach Kazan, what are you wearing on your wrist?
I'm wearing the Seiko 5X Worn and Wound limited edition that we released a few months ago today.
Very cool. I'm wearing I'll let the two similar watches go next, I'm sure. I'm wearing a Linda Verdelin Spido Light.
Ooh.
So
nice.
This is on titanium. Something a little different.
It's different.
Figure I got to get this out more often.
Yeah.
Or sell it. It can't just sit there. It's got to get used.
So you were just at the Miami F1 races.
Yeah.
But you didn't bring that. You wore the Porsche.
I did not bring this. I wore the Porsche quite a bit.
It's
actually
almost like more of an F1.
It might be. It's a little chunky, but it's titanium, so it doesn't wear too heavily. Yeah. I don't know. It's a cool watch though. It's got a funk.
For sure.
What are you wearing, Zach Weiss?
So I'm wearing none other than the Bamford B347.
Oh yes,
Predator forged carbon.
What a
mono
coincidence!
Pusher. I know. What a coincidence.
Amazing coincidence. Happens
to be in the studio. We actually have two in the office right now. So the forged carbon, and then one of the titanium models as well, which Mr. Bamford was kind enough to send us over the other month, and I'm in the process of reviewing it. This is a really cool watch. I mean, it took me. I remember the titanium models came out. It really caught my eye on Instagram. And then I kind of dug into a little bit, and thanks actually to Bradley Price, our good friend from Audroma, for linking us up on getting us communicating. But yeah, I'm a big fan of chronographs, big fan of aggressive kind of 80s sort of style cases. You hit a lot of notes here that really stuck out to me. But it's funny, in person, I have to say that the forged carbon has really beat out the titanium for me, which I didn't expect because. I don't know. Forged carbon is a strange material. Maybe I'll ask you a little more about working with that.
Yeah, he can enlighten us. And it's a monopusher.
It is a monopusher chronograph. So I mean, we could just get into this, but we should ask. So maybe
George, what are you wearing on? What are you wearing on your wrist? What do you got on today?
What am I wearing on my wrist? I'm actually wearing the Frank Miller Snoopy.
Oh, very cool.
Got it. Okay.
So this is a Bamford. We worked with Frank Miller and designed this. This was before Christmas. 25 pieces worldwide. I think 25 pieces. I'm about to correct myself and go, oh no, it was more pieces. It just says limited edition, so that's even more scary.
One of a few.
Anyway, it's one of a few. For me, it's kind of one of those things. It's very Bamford in the way of black on black on black, and it's Snoopy. And if I had, I normally have a loom pen on my desk, but it's got these wonderful patterns all the way around, and it is the crazy hour. So for me, I like crazy movements, and this was one of those watches. When we spoke to Frank Miller, we were like, hell yes, we've got to do this. We've got to do Snoopy. And so we kind of we launched with this with Frank Miller, and it sold out in stupid and quickly time. And that for me is something that bugged me about it, because we're still getting people asking for it. So so I know everyone goes, oh my God, we want to sell out. Like you guys, we want to sell out, but you almost don't, because you want to leave, you're
100%.
leaving money on the table. You're leaving something that you're leaving people are annoyed that they've missed out on it. So it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, we've had a few limited editions that, they sell it instantly, same kind of a thing. You get a lot of angry, sad emails. I wasn't awake, that kind of a thing. Then we've had, luckily, we've had one or two that have like hung on a little while. And at first you're like, oh, that's unfortunate. But then you're like, you know what? Everyone who wanted one of those got one. They had the time to think about it. And that's great, too.
Yeah, what Ferrari always says, we always make one fewer than we think we can sell. Maybe it should always be, we'll make one more than you think you can sell and cover everybody.
Well, do you know, that's the thing? I think on any limited edition, you're playing this game of like, can you do it or can you not? What's the numbers? You always push the numbers slightly, and then you go, and then the night before or even a week before, you're kind of going, oh my God, what the hell? Are we actually going to deliver it? What's happening? I mean, I have sleepless nights before we launch anything, and we've launched a few watches, and it's just each time I'm going, is this going to happen? How long is it going to happen? We launched a Bremont last 2 weeks ago, and it was one of those things where, Giles, Nick, and I all phoned each other. We did a group kind of therapy session just before we went into it, and we were like, what's going to happen? Are people going to react to it? What do people think? And it was like, I'd shown some clients, they'd shown some clients, and it was just like, and we were all kind of trying to kind of unpsych ourselves before the event, because we were just like, is this going to happen? Is it going to sell?
Yeah, and it seems like the reception of that watch was quite positive.
Oh, very, very positive. Well, of course, in life there is trolls, and I'm sure we've had some negative opinions. But the thing is, it has gone very well. I'm sad. I literally have been back and forth with a client just before I jumped onto this podcast. And the client was not begging. He said to me, I want that Bremont watch. And I said, I'm really sorry, it's sold out. And it sold out in X amount of period of time. And that's leaving it on the table, 250 watches, but we've left one client that is a client of mine, and literally my back and forth, WhatsApps, phone call, everything is, I'm really sorry it's sold out. And but it can't be sold out. You must have one spare. You must have one hidden in your office. And I'm like, no, I even sold that one.
Yeah. I mean, the Laurier Gemini, I bought secondhand. I like so much that you didn't have any just laying around.
No.
So that's how it goes sometimes, and that's okay. It's funny, you hit on a note with that watch with the black base and the blue markers. I feel like there were 3 releases within the span of like 10 days that all had a similar. Seiko did a trio of divers with the black base and the blue, and then the IWC had that black base with the Petronas green hour markers. It seems to be onto something. And hey, if you're not getting like negative reactions, then you're not doing something right. Is my take on that.
I like that. Yeah, and you're right. The IWC was unreal. I mean, that was a really, really good and great way of launching it. You just said you've been to Miami. I mean, like, what a great backdrop to launch a watch.
Yeah, no, fabulous. And they were everywhere. The IWC did so much activation space. You can tell. I talked to Chris Granger about it for a while, and he seems real concerned that their brand isn't it doesn't have the awareness that it should have, or something like that. So they plastered the brand everywhere. Yeah, it was a cool watch.
I think they owned the Miami Grand Prix. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, that was them to a T. I mean, like, no other brand really. I would love to say all the other brands got a look in, but they didn't. And Tag Heuer was on the winning brand, but IWC rocked it. Chris Granger, he does things in a different way.
Yeah. So George, let us. You are very prolific. Tell people who maybe aren't familiar with George Bamford, with Bamford. How do you explain yourself? Introduce yourself. What do people need to know about you?
Into this hobby.
A pain in the ass. How do I describe myself? I'm probably the best way to describe it. I love watches. I love watch design. I started my business now 19 years ago, customizing watches. I was kind of I can quote a few famous people that ran watch businesses called me, the punk of the watch industry, and that's something that was absolutely amazing at that time. But now I work officially with watch brands from Tag Heuer, Zenith, Chopard, G-Shock, Girard-Perregaux, Bremont that we just discussed. I'm trying to think of the other brands that would, and if I'm missing one, it's kind of like the Oscars. I'm missing off my mother or something else. But that's kind of how I started. About 5 years ago, we started working officially with the watch brands, and it has been such a pleasure. It's been one of those things where someone described it as I'd come out of the dark and into the light, and I still like black watches. So I'm going to say to you is I'm still in the dark, but I love the light. I love the light. Yeah. And that for me is the thing where we sit there, and then I design for some of the brands, or I take their expression of their iconic piece, and then we make it something new. So the Tag Heuer Monaco we did in forged carbon with the aqua blue subdials, and it was one of my signature colors. We did a flame orange aqua racer with Tag Heuer recently. The Frank Muller that I just told you about, the Bremont that we've done, and we've done a G-Shock that is due for another one. We have to launch another G-Shock because that one was a very, very good thing. Then we have Bamford London, and I think I'm even boring myself by introducing myself, but we have Bamford London, and that is me itching my design, kind of whatever it is, to create my own case and my own watch. And we started with something very, very simple that was, and I've got the first ever one here, that was our service watch. So this was a asymmetrical, very simple, military inspired dome glass, simple service watch. And we used to, when anyone came in, I'd kind of done a bit of a design cues from all the military watches, and when anyone came in, I would give it back to them as a service watch, so their watch came in for a service. And then a client came in and brought 8 of them, and I was like, it's not for sale. And he said, no, I want 8. And then my Bamford London got born out of service watch, and then we then built our GMT. Mayfair Sport, that is our kind of high impact polymer watch, and then and that's a quartz movement watch that some people go, why quartz? But we can have a debate for years on quartz because I freaking love quartz. And GMT, and then you've got the B347 that is the single push chronograph watch, and for me that is one of those forged carbon and titanium case. And I love single push, and I love GMT. It was basically me itching I had something to itch, and it was my design itch. And I've got a few other watches that I'm wanting out of Bamford London. So it shows what we do at a good price. And what I mean is, it's not high price. It is a good movement, great reliable watch, and I always want my watches to beat around and enjoy. So that was where Bamford London sits. And then we've done some crazy things with Snoopy, and we
lots of character watches. So many.
Yes, I've got, and there's more to come. Okay. I love, because it makes me smile. Why I'm even showing you. I mean, even on my desk, I've got a flying Snoopy on my desk. I mean, things make you smile, and I think character watches. If you go back into the history of character watches are so damn cool, and they've been cool throughout the years. And you think about some of the brands that have done some character watches even recently. I mean, wow. I mean, you think about the Bulgari Mickey Mouse. I mean, boom.
Sure.
The old Geragenta designs, where it was always into that. There's some great things about these character watches, and I think there's always going to be a place. Swatch with every character watch that they've done. There's been some awesome character watches, and I think that's why I've always, that's one of the itches I love, and Snoopy is kind of one of the characters I love. And there's some other cool characters out there. Of course, we've just talked about Disney, that of course I'd love to work with Disney, but that probably will never happen unless you guys have any connection. I'd love to work with Warner Brothers, because could you imagine a Daffy Duck watch? I'd be like, we're pretty tight with like Bob Iger. I think we'll put you in touch. Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, with your podcast room, I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to your site the other day and was like, almost got lost browsing around. There's so much going on there, and there's so much to kind of explore and discover. There was even a part that I went into that had like fragrances or like lifestyle kind of
Oh
stuff.
so that's Bamford Grooming Department. That is another thing that I'm in. And so I wanted, so when we built this building, so we brought the building and then we renovated, and I wanted it to have a smell. And I love vetiver, so the whole of the office smells of this like smoked vetiver smell. And then clients wanted to buy it, and I was like, but it's not for sale. And we had candles made, and we had 100 candles, like 100. And anyway, in the first week, clients were just like, but you've got to give it to me. I'm just paying this much for this watch. I want this candle. So anyway, so that first 100 candles got given and not sold to people. And then I just kind of launched out of that and launched the Bamford Grooming Department.
Oh, very cool. So you started life kind of customizing
Yes.
watches, and that's kind of how you made your name, right? With
Yes.
blackouts out, putting your name on the dial.
Yeah.
How many, like, I can imagine there were some challenges in dealing with, like, as your profile rose and rose and rose, and with brands maybe feeling uncomfortable about their watches being customized, and now look at you, like, what was that transition like, kind of going from the punk of the watch world, as you said, customizing these things, to hey, now brands are kind of like embracing this with open arms and realizing that customers want like their own thing, their own expression.
I think, look, we all want individuality. You think about I think is it 5 of us here, 6 of us here, all have different watches on our wrist. We want something to express ourselves. So personalization for me is one of the key elements. If you like a expression of a certain case or a certain watch, and you want something that is your style, we've all got our own different style, from shirts to trainers to t-shirts to everything, even headphones. We've all got our own way that we rock our own world, and that's the great thing. We don't want to be a clone of someone else. So I think personalization was key. And I think the brands that brought me on board, and I'm very, very lucky, are the brands that are understanding something in this world. I mean, Zenith was the first brand to bring me on board to do personalization. And that was absolutely amazing to be working with them. And, it was just a really, really great thing. And because, to be accepted into the watch world and accepted with a brand that is so amazing like Zenith, that was one of the things that really kind of it was almost a no-brainer, because you're being asked by Jean-Claude Biver, the god of the watch world, to come and work with Zenith, but also working with Zenith on the El Primera and other great iconic watches. Mm-hmm. I was a kid in a candy store. They were like, "What do you want to make?" I was like, "Really? Hello." And then it was like, what can we do? How can we do it? How can we push this boundary? How can we do more? And that's what I think, if you look at what Zenith's doing with their Defy Extreme now and all the different things that they've done, some really, really, really cool things. But I've been seeing all of this happening behind the scenes. So it's been amazing to see, I'm now, instead of me kind of going, oh my God, I really want to do this, they're like, yeah, but why can't we push it a little bit further? What can we do? So it's one of the coolest things.
So if somebody comes into Zenith and is like, I really like this Chronomaster Sport, I'd really like if it was black or had these colors in it or something, do they send them to you? Like, well, George Bamford might be able to help you out there.
I hope they send them to us. Yeah, we have had a few clients come. Of course, we've had clients come from there, but we also have in boutique in Asia. You can actually customize a pilot in boutique. So a Bamford customization in boutique now in Asia. So that is one of those, and you'll see that happening more and more with more boutiques coming online with personalization. So if you look at where with Zenith, but there's other brands that we're bringing that kind of personalization in, but the Zenith, Zenith is first. It's one of those things that I hold up with this wonderful jewel of, the team there are amazing. And you saw even in lockdowns and all the different things, you see that team, Julien, Romain, all of those guys really did. They were on everything from every podcast. They really, their brand was being talked about a hell of a lot. Like, as you discussed, Chris Granger, there's some wonderful CEOs that jumped in and showed everyone. And I think that's the spirit of the brands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I know Jack and I got a chance to chat with Julian and Roman for quite extensively at Watches and Wonders, and boy, we really kind of came out there. Like, we really like where their head is at with and how they're thinking about this and the kind of things that they're doing. We'll have to get them on the podcast one of these days and talk about.
Yes.
We're all huge fans of Zenith, of course.
Yeah.
But where does like the like official line end? Like, okay, these are official George Bamford like creations with Zenith, and like, you're doing like your own thing, customizing this watch.
So I've got to say to you some of the nice things. Firstly, we're working with the brands, so we do personalization on their watches. So we don't have to reverse engineer anything that we used to do. So we don't have to kind of go back and we also have a service account. I mean, I have a service account. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, it's the coolest thing ever. It's like, I've got a service account. I then, I can work with them. I can chat to Roman and say, hey, what's the dial like? Or Tag Heuer talking to their team and going, hey, you've changed the battens on this. What's the feet like? Instead of us going, okay, get the watch, strip it, let's have a look at it, what's happening, blah, 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 blah. It's very much, time is reduced, it's connections with great teams that understand what we do. And, we're not, I wouldn't say we're selling millions of customized watches, because we're not. It's not, I can keep the lights on my business and I can afford my life. And that's the great thing. But what we are doing is we're adding like some, maybe it's a little bit of sugar on top of the Christmas cake or whatever it is. We're the little bit of kind of glitter that everyone goes, oh my God, that's cool. Yeah. And that's where we sit, is we're in, and I have no delusions of grandeur on that. I know that I know where I am, but it's great working within a team.
Yeah.
It's like you guys. I mean, you're working in a team.
Yeah.
And you feel better when you're with other people, because, you realize that the things that you're saying, or the things that information you're getting, you're feeling part of that team. You're feeling like, actually we can work, instead of me out on my own kind of going, okay, no one likes me. What am I doing? I felt like someone said to me, I've Billy No Mates. I felt a bit like that for years. And now I feel like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Sorry. With something like the Forged Carbon Monaco, which is, like you're saying, sort of a collaboration, but it's like a signature sort of design for you. Like, was there, like, how much leeway did you get there? Is Tag accepting? Because it's very interesting that they're like letting a designer in their house, which is just, it's so rare in the watch world. I mean, they don't even talk, most brands don't talk about their designers at all. Yeah. There's only a handful of people who will like let in, sort of thing. Yeah.
So that I got quite a lot of leeway, and it was kind of quite a bizarre thing, because it was like, Jean-Claude and his team just said, what do you want? And I said, well, look, my honest thing is I'd love to do a carbon Monaco. And they were like, oh yeah, we can do that. And I was like, really? and then it was like, okay, this and this, and then literally it was just like, even like black, there was, because there is a watch that I've always been desperate for, is the Dark Lord from Tag Heuer. It's something I can never afford. It always goes for stupid amounts. It's always one of those things that, but I wanted the kind of my version of it that was kind of that side, and then the sub dials. And everyone's heard me talking about it, but those sub dials had to illuminate, because I wanted it to be like Steve McQueen in Le Mans. When you look at that watch, those white sub dials pop off, and I wanted the aqua blue to be that, but illuminating, because it was one of my earliest memories of cool cars and watches together. So they, everything about it was just like, and I think because I had a reason, I was like, this is what I like. This is, these are why I would do it. I think everyone went, oh, And I did the designs and we went back and forth, but it was my team and we were like, and this is what we were thinking, this is how it is, this marketing. And they were just like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then the stepped case, like the steel, they had this wonderful stepped case that they'd done in the carbon. I was like, how the hell have you got that razor edge shape in carbon? And they're like, yeah,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry. There's a few things that were big surprises, like they put on the crown in the Hoya logo was in aqua blue, and they were like, no, we'll never do that on the crown, and they did it on the crown on that watch, and you just go, oh, hello, and that was the thing, and it was amazing to be, that was an amazing thing. But then, things like we worked with Zenith to do a Mr. Porter's solar blue Heritage 146, and that was a solar dial that was a reverse kind of flare dial, and it was just, and I could never make it. I've been trying, and Roman went, yeah, don't worry, we can do it. Wow. I was like, oh, hello. Yeah. Or, I can get on to something like Gero Perigo. We worked with Gero Perigo twice recently. One of them was working on the Laureato, and I wanted an opposite to black. I wanted to work on a unisex size, so I went to them and said, okay, I love the Laureato, I love, so I was just like, okay, so what do we do? How do we do it? And they went, okay, well, this is the size. And I said, well, unisex has got to be something where I can wear it, my wife can wear it. I want it to be something where there isn't a woman's or a man's. This Laureate has got to be this. So we did that. And I said, well, look, I'm always known for black. Can we do white ceramic? Please, can we do white ceramic? And they were like, okay. And I was like, and it was nuts. And I was like, okay, we're going to call it Ghost. And I wanted a black and white, and I wanted to play on the white and black. And it was very much this kind of like reverse of, and it was just cool to work with Clemence and the team there, and just kind of doing something where you go, this is what I would like as the expression. So I'm the kid in the candy store. It's like whenever I go into a watch brand, like with Bremont guys, it's like, actually Bremont was different because they're good friends of mine. I would say these brands are good friends, but these guys, Nick and Giles, we go driving on weekends. We hang out quite a bit. So, and for about 2 years, we kept on saying we should do something together. And every time I'd bring a design, or every time they'd bring a design, it kind of almost like the tumbleweed happened whilst we were talking. It was like, okay, yeah, great. And then I went to their wing and I was just like, look, I love the S500. And they're like, yeah, we hadn't thought about that. And I was like, yeah, I like the idea of a dive watch. And then I was like, California dial. I love the bull around the California dial. I love the whole story of what it's meant to have done. And I said, oh, I want to do this. And then the blue, we wanted a Cali blue instead of a Bamford blue. So we wanted a different blue and all these different things. And then it was just, that was very organic in some ways, because it was all done on WhatsApp and text. I would send them an image, then they'd send an image back. It was like, and working with Clemence, it was all on Teams and Zooms, because it all happened during COVID. So it was a different way. And like my designer was at home and I was it was like, we're all working in different ways. Where here, my designer just sits opposite my desk almost. He sits in another room just opposite me. So, it's like almost I throw things at him. No, I don't. He's you know what I mean? It's a very interactive, very quick process of designing something.
Yeah. And I feel like the 10, 15 years ago, when you were starting out, using these types of materials was kind of like far off, like exotic, super exotic. And I feel like now it's just kind of brought into pretty normal spaces, and to where it can even be on a watch.
Yeah, well, forged carbon, I think it's a really interesting material. I'm really, I'm glad to see it in this circumstance. I kind of just want your general thoughts on forged carbon, because it's something I'm kind of like, people react to it very differently, and you'll see it on watches. Obviously, they're very expensive, and it entered the market in like a luxury space, and then, in the last 5-6 years, you've had a couple of micro brands use it. Victorinox had their Inox out of forged carbon.
Yeah.
And sometimes those watches get reacted with, oh, it's just plastic. But then you'll have a
But
Doxa
if he-
come out with a
yeah.
$5,000, and they'll be like, everyone will be like, "Oh, all hail Forged Carbon again."
No.
So I'm just, but interesting. Like, what's your interest in that material, functionally, aesthetically? Like, why?
Firstly, on your wrist, if you actually see it, you've got the Predator, so I really like it. But of course, I like it because it's black on black with a hint of grey. It's. But if you look at the case, I went with matte as well. I went for no. I like the reflective nature of forged carbon. I like how it looks in the light, and we really honed down even on the texture of it. We wanted it to have something that had a different property. That's why we even went with a honed titanium as the second one on this. I like forged carbon because I think it was when forged carbon came out, I was like, this is a future material. And I look at carbon fiber seeming very what was I say 90s, where I think forged carbon has kind of missed that genre of kind of being pigeonholed as a certain time or age. I think it comes in waves of forged carbon hitting different time zones, eras, but it doesn't hit 90s. Here's carbon fiber case, with that carbon fiber weave that you normally are used to. That for me is a bit like, okay, that doesn't feel right, where something like forged carbon does feel right, because I love the texture. Yes, it could be a love hate, but I think I love the uniqueness of it. I love the unique pattern of each one. When you put them next door to each other, you want everything to be really the same, but there's almost an organic nature of each one having its own feel. And how it works with the dial. I do love, there is this kind of wonderful thing of like, it absorbs the light in a different way. And especially when you've got a matte dial with a little hints of gloss going off it, just everything in the play of that dial and the case work very, very well, especially with that quick deploy rubber strap. Because I've got a reverse Panda dial forged carbon, and I bring 4 straps with it, 4 rubber straps, and I just have 4 different looks, from black to red to I've even got a purple strap for it, because it's just fun. It's a watch where you can wear it, enjoy it. 80s design. I kind of, it is a bit 80s inspired, but I think my watches are kind of, they fit in different genres, and I think that's for me my idea of that watch being that way.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but so, I was doing a little digging. When I first saw the case, I was like, something's very familiar about that. And then it took me a while to like go through the mental sort of like catalog of all the watches I've seen. So this is inspired by the Audi Sport. Is that correct? The sort of case shape?
Yeah. God, you've clocked something. It's I wouldn't say it's the exact copy, but I love that watch.
Yeah.
And for me, there is a very cool nature of that watch. I think the Audi Sport is a cool watch anyway. And there is elements that are, because I love the uplift on the where you put the bezel, but how the case goes up, and I just thought that was a really nice thing. And then the lug points, it's got some elements of that. You can't say that you can't be inspired by other things. So for me, my watches, I've always got inspiration. I mean, like literally I've got a wall to my right of loads of different weird and wonderful things that I'm designing and getting through, that have taken inspiration for something else. But it's where does it come? What form does it make? And then, single push chronograph. I love mono pushes because I just think they're crazy. Like I love split second chronos as well. I think it's kind of like it's one or the other. It's kind of like anyway. So that's why. But I'm pleased that's good case knowledge.
Well, so the Miami 5100 is probably like my favorite caliber. So I like just. I've looked at them all. I've read about it endlessly. And when I first saw it, I was like, God, there's something so familiar. And it took me a little bit, but then I was like, oh, it reminds me of that. And it's funny, looking back through it, I'd forgotten I'd ever seen one of those in person. But years ago, Crown and Caliber, pre-Hodinkee days, they had done just like a Hoyer event in New York City, and they had a Dark Lord there. They had so I found a photo online. It's like, wow, that's a photo. Hey, look, there's the Warner One watermark. I took that photo.
Oh, yeah.
But so and then just looking at it again. But what I loved about it, though, is like it's a case that like nobody knows and should be celebrated because it's a beautiful case. So I'm excited to see it again, inspired by, or or not. It's just like it's an excellent, interesting set of geometry. But then mixing it up with these materials that feels like a material that it should have been in almost. Like it's like you're saying, it has this sort of aesthetic that fits in with that sort of
Like if they had made it
brutalist
today.
80s. And there's the Audi Sport, it's like those are rally cars, like Group B, like it just ties in so well. So like I think it works perfect. And like I was saying, actually I guess it was before we got on, the titanium one is beautiful too, but I've found myself wanting to just wear the forged carbon one. It's such a different piece.
No, and it is, and that's what I love about it. And, the Audi Sport. And so I've got one of the Audi Sports, and I'm very, very pleased to have had that watch. If you actually compare like for like, there's so many differences,
I'm sure.
But what's really nice is seeing them side by side. You kind of go, oh, okay, this one's a little bit bigger. This one's this, but there is something that you kind of go, actually, there's something. You always get inspired by something, and it's kind of like, where do you get that inspiration? I get it from great designs, great watches, like our GMT. You look at that case, it is a different it's a GMT, but you can compare it to multiple watches, but it's which watches does it feel? It feels 70s, it feels that kind of retro vibe, and I love this modern retro vibe.
Are there non-watch design objects, George, that you find yourself being inspired by? I'm wondering what's on that board to your right.
What have I got on here? I've got new packaging design at the moment. So I've been inspired by flowers at the moment. I know that sounds bizarre, but I've been designing this packaging where you lift it up and the whole thing opens up and presents the watch in a new way, instead of, so you kind of lift the outer box and then something it presents, and the watch just kind of, it's its own display. So that's something I'm designing. And I've been and that's coming out July, end of July, and then rock albums. I keep on kind of looking at rock albums on design. Car design, of course. Car design. I've got. I don't know if I can show you, but I've got some car designs up on my wall of different lights, ellipticals, wheels. I mean, on my screen, even behind all of you guys, I've got weird things that I've looked at from daggers to even knurling in different ways. So yes, there is so many different inspirations from packaging design. I'm still being inspired, but I mean that I absolutely love. There was an old titanium Tag Heuer box, and
that
I just love.
Is fantastic for the titanium.
So I love. So that's something. I'm just trying to pull loads of different things, but I consume books on design and things. I've just got that came in yesterday. That was a graphics design book from T-shirt and Taschen, and I just was like looking at different things. So I think you have to be inspired by something around you, and that for me is and it used to be travel. I used to really get a hell of a lot out of travel, because whatever I saw, I'd take photographs of. Saying that, I've just designed a bezel, and I've just seen this on my kid's camera. I saw this wonderful thing on just around the camera's aperture. There was just something that I really loved, and I took a photograph of it. And anyway, we're bringing it into a bezel of a watch, and so there's different things like that. Or like, I don't know, I was climbing a while ago, and I keep on geeking out on cabinas. So I'm just and I just love this kind of the muscular thing on them to figure out what they're doing on reducing on pulling and things like that. So anyway, that was kind of
that's really cool. One of my favorite follows on Instagram, by the way, is Martin Fry, who of Urwork, who documents wherever he's traveling, whatever he's looking at, like he finds inspiration in just the stuff around him, and like how he pulls that into how he thinks about watch design. I think is really interesting.
Yeah, there's this like, and I'm sure you've dealt with this a lot. There's this sense from people who aren't designers, may don't have experience with the creative process, that like everything happens in this moment of pure inspiration, and everything has to be this like entirely original, without taking into account that your brain is created from your memories and all of your experiences, and that it is logical to draw and kind of mix things together from different sources. So it's it's logical that sometimes things look alike, but it's also logical that you're going to pull from it. There's a tripod in our office that both of you and I have commented regularly on how beautiful this thing is, and I wouldn't be surprised if we might end up with something with a certain color combination inspired by this tripod in our office. That's how it works. You see something beautiful, you want to experience it more.
The color of this mic. We've commented on multiple times. It's like a greenish gray. It's a
battleship gray mic.
No, but I think that is, when you say about inspiration, you constantly get inspiration. Every designer does. There is not, I was watching my son recently. My son's launching a watch with us. He designed something a while ago, and it's an iteration of one of my watches. And we were meant to launch it this year. We're going to launch it next year. And it was quite interesting because it was not what inspiration I thought he was going to get, and it was all about skeletonization. And so he's kind of, and the material we've used, and he was sitting with my designers and he was doing it, and it was very much, I'd love to have said I was really involved on this. I was like, go nuts, have fun. I thought he was going to come back with something that was going to be like, okay, this is not great, and it's like a design that we're actually putting it into production. We're going to do it, and I was just like, hell freaking yes. And now that's on one of my cases, but it's a whole new expression of the case. Now, I think that is damn cool when you see something inspiration happens and you're like, well, how did that happen? And then I clocked where he got quite a few of the inspirations from was like, I've got a wall of weird images of watches and parts and different things. So he, and there was a few things he picked off from it that I was like, oh, okay, I now know where that came from. But you don't realize until, and I saw the watch and I was like, that's perfect.
How old is your son?
So my son is 12.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome. He's already kicking off that resume pretty strong here.
Well, honestly, so during lockdown, him and I were stripping pocket watches, and he was just like, and it was so nice to kind of be, it was either Lego stripping watches or I've got an engine at home that him and I take to bits and have fun with. And that's kind of, and so it's, because being dyslexic, you have to kind of do other things to kind of work with your mind and hands. So, that was kind of like him and I together, kind of do that type of stuff.
No, it's really cool.
That's great.
Do you collect watches? Do you follow the watch scene kind of in your free time?
Yes.
Like where do you go when you want to, like, oh, I like that watch. I think, do you collect, I guess, what do you find interesting out there?
Okay, so collecting watches, I like the weird and wonderful.
Weird and wonderful. Okay, great.
I am a weird and wonderful, but I also would say to you is I do collect the limited editions as well. Those things. I think there is a finite amount of them, from the Hodinkee edition to the Mr. Porter to the Rake to the Revolution to the Time and Tide to all of the little big, whatever they are, your editions, the Hypebeast Timex that came out, all of those, they're for me the ones that you go after and you have, because I look at them and think, if they came up at auction in 10 years time, there is only 150 or only 100 or only 200 or whatever it is. There is the IWC Hodinkee edition. There's only X amount, and that's the amount. And that's what I love about those pieces, because they are the thing that I could imagine in 20 years time, maybe 10 years time, they would be the pieces that you would see at auction. You go, God, I want that, because there's only 125 pieces. So that's for me on purist collecting. Sure. The weird and wonderful for me, it's I love. Well, of course, I love the casquette. I built the one for the Only watch, and I freaking love doing that. But I love the Kentucky from Hoyer. I love I love the weird, wacky, wonderful watches that are the things that aren't expected. Like this Frank Miller Snoopy is a crazy hours. It's a weird watch, but it's not the boring normal. And the thing is, I love to wear something that it makes me smile.
Yeah.
You know, I put it on my wrist and I go, okay, I'm driving a nice car and it makes me smile, you know, or I'm at an event and I'm wearing it and it makes me smile. And it sounds probably really mean. I don't really care if someone likes it or doesn't like it. I like that I like it.
Yeah, that's what you need. All right, so you're hitting out for like a long weekend, and you're gonna grab a watch that's not a Bamford watch. What are you grabbing?
Okay, so I can do it. This weekend I'm taking my a Solnar. I've got a wonderful Hoya Solnar, a big Hoya Solnar, and for me that's one of those that I really love. I'm going near the ocean, so it's kind of be like that's my kind of quick grab and go. If I'm going to be a bit more smarter, I'd probably the IWC perpetual calendar, the old ones, the white gold, the Klaus kind of design. You know, for me, the very simplistic case and really bulky. That for me is like a real kind of like, oh yeah, I really love that. And then I'm kind of thinking to myself is, I don't know, you know, I love the. Well, I've got to say Autodromo. I think you know, really cool watches. But then, you know, I could go to you and say something like the Rake Carrera that they did, because I've not seen many of them around, and it's something that, you know, I wear a lot of blues, so that would be my thing. But then, you know, you've kind of it's really bad. I can say
it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah. But a watch, you know, a watch I would never get rid of. And this is something that, you know, well, there's probably about 4 watches I'd never get rid of. Actually, each limited edition I wouldn't get rid of. But the watch that I would never get rid of, that I've never created myself, apart from my stripped and rebuilt it, was my first ever watch that I took to pieces was my Breitling Navitano. And that for me is the watch that, if I ever go to anything and someone says, come and talk about watches, I always take that and I, you know, it's got dents, cracks. It's got, you know, I used a glasses screwdriver and a penknife to take it to bits. And so it really was that first kind of like love for watch making and watch parts. And that was where I started. And that was, you know, 1996. So freaking age ago. And, you know, now I'm sure they're worth money. This is not worth much because, you know, the glass has been replaced about 7 times. It's been back to Breitling X amount of times. The hands have been changed. I mean, it really is. It's a Frankenstein because it's my Frankenstein. It's mine. I've done everything to it. My parents wanted to kill me Boxing Day. They gave it to me for Christmas, and then Boxing Day it was in pieces. And I think that's kind of, I think that's been that kind of thing. So that would be, you know, if you're asking me about taking one watch to a conversation, that would be one that embodies a hell of a lot of knowledge on it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's good answer.
Is there enough risks being taken today in the watch industry?
No.
Sorry,
God, that was a real kind of small answer on that.
That's
one.
good. No,
I've given you long-winded answers on other things. I think yes and no, and that's the thing is I think the independents are really pulling forward on these risks. You know, you look at Moser, you look at MB&F, you look at Laurent Ferrier, you look at, you know, some of the wonderful guys that are doing some very risky things because they're getting a difference. You know, I've just mentioned a few. I'm sure you could mention another, probably 20 other brands that have risked it, done something new, where I think the mainstream, I kind of felt like during COVID, a hell of a lot of the big mainstream brands went to sleep. And then even this Watch and Wonders, they didn't really come out of their hibernation. They were just like, oh, this is what we got and chuck it to you. Where I look at some of the brands that have, you know, and this is what go back to the CEOs that have really been dynamic. You know, you saw at Watch and Wonders those dynamic CEOs. You know, and not only at Watch and Wonders, you saw the independents being the dynamic on those. You know. I know I mentioned Hoya because I feel very, very kind of connected, but you know, they brought out their dive watch that, you know, it was just like, oh, didn't imagine that was going to come along. And there was something damn cool. And then but a brand that I slightly thought had gone to sleep and then really woke up the bloody world is the Omega Swatch. It's a brand that I literally was like, oh, okay, what's happened? And then they dropped that, and everyone was like, oh, and I was like, and whatever their case is, that for me is something that you almost wanted other brands to do at Watches and Wonders.
Yeah, 100%.
We've had the exact same thoughts here.
I just finished writing. I didn't even realize how much I had to say about the watch, but I just wrote a 4,500 word fucking review of that thing because it's just
it'll be up on the site
so
now.
Inspiring. Oh yeah. So sorry for boring you with 4,500 words, everyone listening. But it's just like there's just so much to dig into, even though it's a thing you're familiar with. It was so unexpected and brilliant, and I love it. I'm obsessed with it.
And
I want
it was
more
a step
brands to
out
do
there.
that.
Like that's a spirit. Like that was a risk for like Omega's. They put their stand. They're not like, oh, that's not us. Like nope, they leaned into it just as much. So I would love to see more brands doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you see the fashion world doing it a lot, where, you think about some of the brands where they cross over very, very well. Louis Vuitton and Nike, you got, I don't know, Gucci and Adidas. You've got,
sneakers.
I know I'm on sneakers only, but you think about other great collaborations, and you then look at the watch world and you think, they haven't done it. The automotive world has been doing it quite a bit with, Fragment and Maserati and
Kith and
really
BMW.
Kith and BMW. You see, and Porsche have done their series. That's been wonderful from our tour that did that wonderful car Porsche that was an homage with that Hoya dash clocks. I mean, frick me, I wanted those dash clocks. I went to the guys at Hoya and I was like, please, can you do that? I want one. And anyway, couldn't get one. That was kind of like a computer saying no to me. But anyway, but it was one of, I think that's where brands, you're seeing it. In the watch world, there has been some collaborations, but collaborations with mainstream. And then, there's a few art pieces, but I just don't see it as much. I feel, when the mainstream brands do it, it's very much, this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. Apart from the new Murakami piece from Hublot that I just thought was absolutely nuts because of that protruding from the glass. I was like, what the hell? But anyway, I loved it because I was just like, because it made me go, what the hell?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love watches like that. Well, George, we've taken up an hour of your time. I feel like I could talk to you for the rest of the afternoon, though. We'll have to have you on again sometime soon. This has just been a huge treat to chat with you.
Yeah. We didn't even get to his podcast. You have an excellent podcast. Can you just?
Oh yeah, where can more people get more of you? Where can people get more of you? Where
can they get more of me? Oh my God! Please don't. No one wants more of me. It's called GB Talks. And we talk about oddball watches. That's
all right. Love it.
And really,
sounds
it is. Well, I'd love you guys to come on it, please.
Yeah, anytime.
Please come on mine. But it is one of those things. We just talk about weird and wonderful watches, and if it's a mainstream watch, it doesn't come on it. So we're talking about things like quartz movements and the death of quartz. And it was just some really, really cool fun things. And but it's not as cool as your podcast. But if you're bored, turn on to mine. You'll hear my voice for ages. But it's actually, we've got some good guests.
That's awesome. All right, GB Talks, GeorgeBamford.com. Type in Bamford, your URL bar.
Yeah, Bamford Watch Department.
Yeah, it's there's a whole world there. It's a lifestyle. Go check it out. Go immerse yourself in it. George, thank you for taking the time. It's been a real honor having you on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
All right, until next time. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.